The storied history of Cowboys Packers in the playoffs. And is Dez Caught It still the most memorable matchup to our audience? I can tell you not everybody in this room believes that is the most memorable matchup. We will get to Pops in just 1 second. So this is going to be the 9th meeting between the Packers and Cowboys in the playoffs. Series is tied 4-4. It's tied for the most postseason meetings in NFL history with Cowboys 49ers, Cowboys Rams, and Packers 49ers. So obviously you notice a trend there. So this is a very storied playoff rivalry. Agreed?
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. We used to win them in the 90s.
That
just one though, right?
The one that mattered.
No, you won 3 in the 90s. You beat them 3 straight years in the 90s.
The 3 that mattered.
In the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 3 that mattered. What was an NFC championship game at home, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess that's the one I remember.
The 2 years before was divisional games.
Okay.
To get to the NFC championship. Broadus will tell you.
Yeah, remember Broadus is always like, man, we could not.
So not 92, though, because 92 we played Philadelphia,
Correct.
then San Francisco.
93, 94, 95.
Oh, 94.
That season still exists, even though we didn't win the Super Bowl.
I forget who we played before that San Francisco game. But now I remember.
None of those teams mattered, you know?
There you go.
The only team that mattered was whoever we were beating in the Super Bowl.
But Corey is right. You have lost the last 2. Do you think, we'll dive into them.
Feels like the last 50, Kevin.
Only the last 2. Do you feel like that is the most memorable of the bunch to our audience?
Yes. I can't decide which one is more memorable regarding Dez or the Jared Cook catch, because Dak Prescott, a lot of people, like, they've only known Dak, or some people may only know Dak right now as the quarterback. And they're looking at that, and they remember he came out slow. Somehow they were able to come back in that game, lose 31-28, and like that's still a memorable moment. But I think Dez is still far more in most current people's minds.
Well, that is my answer. Is go to cut number 7. I realize people talk way more about Dez Caught It than Jared Cook caught it. But I think this is the most memorable one for me.
Bends to his left. Comes underneath, and the pass is incomplete, out of bounds. Now they say complete. The official, the second one came in and overruled the other, Jared Cook, and with 3 seconds left, the Packers are going to have a chance to win it. That is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So I think what you've learned is if you hear Joe Buck calling a Packers-Cowboys game, he's going to get one of the key plays wrong. Is he says Dez caught it, and he didn't. He said Jared Cook didn't catch it, but I guess he did. So that, for me, is the most memorable one. Because
how long was the field goal again? Do you remember? Because it feels like it was a
51 yards.
That's a tough field goal, except for Brandon Aubrey.
That is true.
But like I was like, there's a chance.
Rhymes with it, Mason Crosby.
Yeah, there's a chance he misses this still. But I was down. We were supposed to be at the owner's box, but it was so packed. We spilled over to the little Mexican restaurant next door, and we ended up watching it at that bar. And I was like, dude, we're about to win this game.
At the hotel?
Yeah, down at the
Micocina? Is that the
maybe? I can't remember the restaurant's name, but
maybe it's not that.
But I was like, this we're gonna win this thing, dude.
Yes.
And then that happened. I think I went home and I went to my buddy's house and drank the rest of the night, and I just stayed at his house. It was so depressing. It was bad. I did.
Why is that funny?
I called Adrian.
To
I was like, I'm not coming home. I can't drive.
Part.
Yeah, I was like, I can't drive.
Oh, well, I guess that's a smart thing. I thought you were like, I'm not going home to you. I can't look at you because the Cowboys lost.
They were all wearing Cowboys gear, too, at home. Like, Adrian watched the game. Maybe that's why we lost.
And I just remember...
He never watches the games.
I remember that game because of the interception, and you fell behind 21-3 in that game, and it felt like the Cowboys were cooked, and then fought back, tied the game, holy moly, and then this ridiculous play, and you end up losing it.
Yeah.
So we brought up 14 and 16, and...
Oh, which one was 14? That was Dez?
16 was Cook.
I was with Mike that day.
It was a great day, wasn't it?
We gave great speeches, Kevin. You should have heard.
We got to see the last Cowboys game of the season together.
Was it a great day though? They lost.
Do you remember that room? Do you remember how fun that room was up until that last moment? It was so much fun, Kevin.
Because it was the two games that make it different is in Green Bay in 2014, the Cowboys were somewhat in control of that game for most of the game. You got to the fourth quarter and you felt them. I know Reggie doesn't like this, but you could feel the momentum change. All of a sudden, you can't move the ball anymore. Aaron Rodgers, who's playing hurt, is moving the ball.
I remember that. Yeah.
And you're just like, crap, Aaron Rodgers is turning back into Aaron Rodgers, and the Cowboys can't do anything offensively in this second half. And then they take the lead later in the game, and you felt like maybe you could come back. And then obviously the catch, non-catch situation ends up ending your season. And then the other one, I remember because I was having to do Cowboys postgame back then. And I was at the game, and I remember at 21-3, Atolo and one of my buddies, Ryan, I texted him, who's a big Cowboys fan. I'm like, we just lost this game at 21-3. I'm like, it's over. You're not going to come back from 21-3 against Aaron Rodgers. They did.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going through the box score. I don't remember they came back twice. They tied it at 28. Then they tied it at 31. So you were able to come back and tie it up twice. And then obviously in the last 20 seconds, they have the unbelievable pass catch and kick the long field goal to beat you 34-31. But those were two very different feeling games, because when I was with Corey in 14, you felt like you were going to win that game for the majority of the game, and then everything changed late in the third, early in the fourth quarter. And then the other game, you're like, we're losing. Like you don't do this in a playoff game and come back. And then you had the emotions of that fourth quarter comeback that ended up not happening.
And I saw this texted in about 2014. Somewhere along the way, it does kind of feel like DeMarco Murray's fumble has been lost to history, but that was a huge impact play in that as well. But, Pops, I want to kick it over to you. We've got Mike Cantrell with us, winner of K&C for a day. Is the reason why I specifically said our audience is because I thought we would get a lot of feedback about 2014 and 2016. But historically, you have got a different Cowboys-Packers game that you would like to discuss.
I do, and that would be on December the 31st, 1967, the Ice Bowl. In the NFL's top 100 greatest games ever played, this is the number 3.
Wow.
It was at the wind chill during the fourth quarter, the last minute and 16 seconds was 70 below zero.
Which is crazy because even at kickoff, and so it'd get darker and stuff, it was minus 13 degrees with a wind chill of minus 46. So even then, it was already the coldest game in history.
Right. And the referees couldn't use their whistles. They used the whistle for the opening kickoff, and the metal whistle froze to his lips. And he pulled it loose, and of course his lips started bleeding, but the blood didn't scab over. It froze.
Oh my gosh.
And the band was supposed to play the opening ceremonies and the halftime. They couldn't play because the woodwinds froze up and they wouldn't make any noise. And the brass players' mouthpieces froze to their lips. And there was even a spectator, an elderly spectator in the stands that died from exposure.
Are you kidding me?
No, yeah.
I never heard that part.
I have to say that doesn't surprise me because at the minimum, 5 players in that game developed frostbite, toes turned purple, and Packers players openly wept when they got back to the locker room.
I know Pat Summerall, I listened to him talk about that because he was the sideline reporter on that game. And he said the coffee in his cup froze, but he said the most important part was they have a very specific camera angle where you can see a false start that wasn't called in that game. And the only reason they have that camera angle is because they couldn't move the camera because it was frozen in place. They couldn't. So he said that they were trying to get it down on another spot, but they ended up it was landing there. And so he was like, so we got that play specifically because we couldn't move it because it was frozen.
Well, I remember I was 11 years old, and I remember watching this game just like it was yesterday, and it was amazing that the Packers drove it down and to the 1 yard line, and they had they had 2 failed plays. The running back slipped on the second play. I can't remember his name, but
Slippy McSlip.
yeah. But anyway, Bart Starr went to the sidelines and told Lombardi that he thought he could get in, so they called the play Brown right 31 wedge, which meant that the center and the guard would wedge and the running back go in between, except Bart Starr didn't hand the ball off to the running back. He took it in himself, and the score was
very selfish,
20-14. And then they kicked the field goal to win the game 21-14. And I remember that just like it was yesterday. So that's my favorite play of all of them.
The interesting thing about that game, and I don't know how many people remember this or just knew this information, that game fed into Super Bowl II. That was the then NFL championship game. Mm-hmm. And then the year before, they played in the Cotton Bowl, and that fed into Super Bowl I. So not that Vince Lombardi wasn't great. Obviously, he's an all-time great. But I have always wondered if the Cowboys win those 2 games. And the Cowboys, one would assume, would have won those first 2 Super Bowls, how different everything would be. Would they call it the Lombardi Trophy?
Nope.
Probably not.
Landry.
See, I kind of wonder that. But yeah, so the Ice Bowl is what fed into Super Bowl II. But that's one of the 8 meetings is Green Bay won the first 2, the last 2 NFL championship games before we, I guess it was a couple more before we got to the merger. And then the Cowboys won 4 straight in 82, 93, 94, 95. And then we haven't beaten the Packers in the playoffs since they won the last 2 divisional round games. This is the first time these teams will ever play in the wild card round.
My brother-in-law and my father-in-law were at the 95 NFC Championship game, and their recollection is that's the loudest they've ever heard that stadium. And beating Green Bay in that one. I'm sorry, Kevin, did you say that was the first team to beat the same team 3 straight years in the regular season and playoffs?
I am not aware of that, if that is the case.
That was the first time that had happened. Dallas, they won in 93, 36-14 in the regular season and 27-17 in the playoffs. 42-31, then 35-9, 34-24, and 38-27. No wonder Broadus always brings up how much they whoop their asses every year. He was like, we did not want to play the Cowboys. He brings that
weird.
up.
It felt like only Eric Williams was the only person who could block Reggie White on a consistent basis.
It was a battle. It was a battle that we love to watch.
Reggie would dominate every human being he ever played football against, except for Eric Williams.
I probably never paid attention to offensive line, defensive line battles, except John Madden told me this one I had to watch.
How Reggie would always club you, and it would work against everybody, except somehow Eric Williams could take that
because he would hit you in the ear hole.
That sidearm punch and still not be knocked off balance.
It's interesting. Some of these responses, I want to know where this documentary is because I guess I've never seen it. From the 817, just watched a documentary on the Ice Bowl. It was unbelievable. And from the 214. I'm with Pops. I was 12 years old watching that game with my parents. It was the first game that made me cry and understand what it means to be a fan.
The first one, huh?
Oh, I mean, look, if this was in 1967 and you're a fan of the Cowboys or just sports in general, I guarantee you've cried since then.
You ever go back and watch games on YouTube? Because I do this a lot, whether it's the Ice Bowl, which I'll be honest, I've never watched that from start to finish. I don't know if it's on YouTube or not, the whole game. But I'll go back and watch games in the 80s or 90s. Last year I watched, some Packers, Cowboys playoff games. It's amazing how our eyes were okay watching that bad of pixelated sports.
Yeah.
You can't really tell the numbers until they get really close to Bart Starr or Don Meredith or whoever. You're you can't tell the numbers. That it's them. That's a blurry person in a green jersey, and that's a blurry person in a white jersey. So that's the Cowboys, that's the Packers. And you just have to really know the team. There's no score being shown, so you have to remember the score in your head. My wife thinks that we're stupider watching sports now, because we had to really know the players' sizes and their techniques and everything, because you didn't know, you couldn't see number 74 Bob Lilly. There was no way the television could not give you that good of a picture to tell who they were. And guess what? They weren't showing the time. They weren't showing the score. So when you were watching, Pops, you had to, in your head as you're watching, you have to know, hey, the last time they showed the clock, it was at 11 minutes. So we're probably right around 8 minutes right now. I know the score right now is 10-7, and you had to keep all of that in your head. And about every 5 minutes, they would give you an update on how much time was left in the quarter or what the score was in the game.
Well, you should have watched it in 1967 at my house on black and white TV.
Oh my god,
we didn't have a color TV.
What was the size of that screen?
It was what they call a console TV.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, it was. It was different. There was no first, like nowadays you see the first down marker.
My wife thinks that we're more stupid for watching that too. She's like,
She does?
She's like, is there no way that humans can't tell how far 10 yards is, that they have to draw all these lines on the board for you?
I do kind of see her point.
Sometimes it's 4 yards.
That's true, but I do kind of see her point. Every yard is marked. You should feel, all right,
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, got it.
Well, they have the line of scrimmage on there now too, so.
Yeah, they do give us the white line that kind of lets us know, hey, this is where they're.
I might be coming around.
She doesn't watch football, but the other day when she was watching football, she was like, God, they have dumbed this thing down so much for the viewer that they are like, you don't have to know how many yards, you don't have to count anything. You like, it's just all just right plastered on the screen for you. But
from the 214. Now I want to hear Broadus do a Krusty's Corner all about those 90s games. I totally get that. And from the 903, tell Pops, if he was born in September of 1956, we're almost twins. I remember the Ice Bowl too, but this person is a Packers lifer, so sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry.
Do you want me to block that person?
Yeah, go ahead and block them.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Keep them around just so we have somebody to beat up on after this game.